And here we are. We are live talk with Becky Chernek. And I got to tell you guys, boy, it is a special edition. I know you guys might not be used to me coming live on Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon, depends on where you're viewing us from. But it is a pleasure. It is 2023, and I've got Tarry Shebesta in the house. He is one of the best featured speakers, and we have got a great episode in mind here. We are talking credit first versus credit last. But before we get into this conversation, if you're new to this channel, I'm Becky Chernek, and I've been providing the very best in finance and insurance training for auto dealers, independent dealers throughout the USA, as well as in Canada. And I say not just F&I. It is really from the time that customer touches down on that dealership website, and also working with that BDC, from working with Business Development Center to strategizing with our sales staff to working those deals with sales and desking simultaneously with our desk managers to finalizing this transaction in the F&I office with a designated F&I manager or even single point of contact. And the whole idea is to impact serious performance without jeopardizing your hard-earned reputation. And so, guys, we're going live here on, first of all, YouTube. So if you happen to really like what we're talking about, if you wouldn't mind, hit the subscribe button, like us, and share. We're also going live on Facebook. Now, I've got several groups on Facebook, but two especially, F&I Today with Becky Chernek, as well as F&I on the Edge. And I got to tell you something. We've got some really talented folks in those two groups. And I'm telling you, they have a tremendous amount of experience in the industry, offering you insight, feedback to go ahead and helping you get ahead in automotive retail, sales, and F&I. And we are going live on LinkedIn as well as Twitter. So again, thank you for being here. Tarry, take it away. First, for viewers that may not necessarily know who you are, which I can't believe that's possible, but if you wouldn't mind, share, your background, brief background, experience, and then let's go ahead. Let's get into this conversation about credit first versus credit last.
Thank you, Becky. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in your show, because I think what you're bringing to the marketplace and the industry is really, really important topics. So again, I appreciate the opportunity. I'll try to keep the background down to 30 minutes or so. I'm just kidding. 33. There's 33 years in the industry, and there's a lot to talk about. But it's been an exciting time in my career in the auto industry, and I kind of joke with people: once you get in, you cannot get out, and it just seems like to be that's the way it works in the auto side. But I started as a lender, a dealer, and creating products for my own leasing website back in 2000. So that was 22 years ago, online direct-to-consumer leasing. And then after the 2008 industry crash, a lot of the dealers that we were buying cars from for our leasing company came to me and said, look, you're doing some amazing stuff in the industry on the leasing side. Can you help us? And I was like, wow. So I'm going to go from competing with dealers to actually helping dealers. And that was in 2008 after the crash. So I created a version of the product for dealers, and that was the Drive It Now product. And then using the Shop by Payment experience that I created for myself, also launched that to dealers, created the first full file soft pull credit bureau. That was in 2010, initially with TransUnion. Now all three bureaus offer that. So it's been an exciting ride. I'm not done yet. There's some additional things that I'm working on currently. Not much I can talk about right at the moment, but it goes back to my lender roots. So that's what I'll say. So it's full circle of all kinds of things in the industry. So I'm ready to talk about what's near and dear to my heart, credit first.
So, okay, let's really dive into this, because we're getting more and more dealers who are seeing the seeing the benefit from talking payment first and having a better idea of what the customer actually qualifies for. And you said it. I mean, we're dealing with an affordability crisis here in the United States. And unlike unlike it hasn't quite been like this for the past at least 10 years, I would think, or more.
Right.
And the interest rates are, maybe not as high as what they were, maybe, I don't know, when we were both growing up in the car business, but they are climbing faster than they've ever have and ever. And so it would only make sense, I guess, well, I feel like it would, to make sure that the customer likely can budget or qualify for this vehicle earlier on in the process, rather than, I guess, waiting until the customer makes their way into the F&I office.
Yeah, and actually, so last week, not only was there NADA, but at the beginning of the week there was AFSA, which is the American Financial Services Association. It was all about their auto finance conference, right? So the theme started on Monday. That conference started Monday, and the theme through there and into NADA was basically monthly payments. That's the story for 23. It's all about rising monthly payments and how do we find solutions that can help that consumer afford a car. I mean, you've got the current rebate, or you've got the current interest rates, and so how do we look at that and create products, services, and financial offerings that can help that consumer? So that's the big thing. Another part of it is we talk about transparency, right? In the auto industry, it's all about transparency. Unfortunately, a lot of times the transparency that we're showing that customer it's not real. So there's a trust factor when we start quoting payments to somebody up front, whether it's on their own or in the dealership, and then that changes when we're starting to write the deal. Okay, so there's all kinds of issues that, including compliance issues, that that get into you start getting into that, and now you're really going down a rabbit hole. So the idea is to figure out how can we create a better upfront solution and more trusted information that customer can use, and that creates a positive experience, right? So it's all of these things together that we need to work on to make sure that the consumer's happy, the dealer's going to be happy, and of course, if we're compliant, the lenders are going to be happy. So that's kind of the overall.
The whole idea behind it, and making sure that the loans actually perform better. I mean, that's really it at the end of the day, right? And that customers can actually afford a payment, not being pushed into a payment that they likely can't afford, that will likely either they'll be late making payments or in time, or they may find 6 months into it, maybe not even a year, that, you know what, I can't do this. And so lenders see a lot of those loans go belly up.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that, again, we look at how the loans perform, and even lenders, to my understanding, look at that, and for those dealers that really wrap their head around this and do the best to dive deeper into deal structure to assure that the likelihood that the loan will perform better, that the customer's in the right vehicle based off of their budget, based off of what they like, certainly qualify for, loan to value, that sort of thing. Frankly, more lenders will buy deeper, and certainly that relationship goes a bit deeper. And those are things that, when I talk to, work with dealers, it's, if in fact that your loans are performing better, that puts you in a much better situation with your lender.
Mm-hmm.
They're more apt to buy that story rather than just buy the deal based on FICO score, loan to value, and percentages and that sort of thing. So I do see that as being advantageous, right? But we still have dealers out there, and we have not, well, dealers out there, F&I people out there that are like cringing at the very thought of salespeople talking payment, desk talking payment. They'd rather don't talk about this stuff until that deal makes its way into an F&I office. They're the ones that are going to go ahead and put this deal together, come heck or high water. This is their thought process. They think, well, I have all the information necessary to make that final decision.
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot right there that you just said about the letting that salesperson, work the deal or even further up the funnel. And I think there are a lot of the reasons why that I think dealers are a little nervous about that. The first wave of digital retailing that's out there, and a lot of it mostly right now, allows that customer to do their own credit. Right? They select what they think their credit score is, and it's even if they know their score, it's not the same score we use in the industry, which is the auto enhanced. Right? So that's a disconnect right there. But if you let that customer or you let the salesperson use a tool in the dealership that sets the wrong expectation or wrong information to that consumer, then when it goes into the box, right, to do the deal, then it all falls apart, and it's just a bad experience all the way around. So, with my own business, I as a leasing company, I would get people all the time. They would come to Lease Compare. They would say, I want to lease a Corvette. And we would be like, great. And once we would get their credit, we would decline them. And they would be like, wow, but I've got a 750 credit score. Well, that's great. But your income doesn't qualify you to lease that Corvette. Your debt to income, payment to income. You should have been looking at a Camaro. So what happened then? They got mad or embarrassed and they left. I didn't get the deal. Right. And this happens at the dealership all the time. The customer will leave. Now that they know the reality, they'll go and get the Corvette, but not from you. Right. So it's just a bad situation. So again, credit first allows us to get that information ahead of time. The software is important too, right? Because the credit alone, a lot of dealers are like, yeah, okay, I don't really, and this is also for compliance purposes, I don't really need my salespeople looking at credit, right? They're not necessarily trained for that. But if you have software that puts up the guardrails so that the salespeople can use the tool, and it creates a payments and rates based upon the person's credit, not what we think we can get out of that person, right? So that's another compliance issue, adverse selection. So, it can be done, but today, the tools that are out there, there's a disconnect. What we're quoting in the showroom or online with self-credit is not always what we're getting in the box. And that's when the dealer says they put on the brakes and they're like, okay, no digital retailing. We're going to go back to and I promise you, I've seen this now. I'm talking to dealers. I'm out there all the time visiting dealers, and they're like, we're going back to the old way. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Right? It's like, so, but it's because the tools that they've experienced are like, not good.
So perhaps maybe some dealers, and I'm not here to blame a dealer for not doing their due diligence when it comes to some of this technology. And sometimes they're sold bill of goods, right? We know that. And they think that object is a lot shinier than what it really is, right? And then when they buy it, then they realize most of the staff, the team will do a complete workaround.
Work around it.
divert
Exactly.
anything and everything that has anything to do with working with that. And so you're not the first that has said, okay, we're back to pre-COVID days. In a lot of the stores where the dealers are like, you know what? We're not messing with this digital retailing so much because it isn't communicating. We're not connecting the dots. Customers are coming in under different terms. We're just not there. We're just not integrating. We're not where we need to be. And it's more frustrating for the customer and for us. You know, they seem to have an idea of payment. When we come in and we do a deeper dive, we find out, guess what? You don't actually qualify for this particular vehicle or this particular payment. And of course, that's really frustrating. It's frustrating for the dealership, you know, having to explain that to the customer. And it's certainly frustrating, obviously, for the customer that has to go through that. And it takes that much longer to get that customer through the customer journey to finalizing the terms in F&I. But that being said, AutoNation has the ability to, you can text to the customer, can text to AutoNation. Maybe you can help us out in understanding how this all works. And they get an idea of what they likely qualify for. So, so that could be an amount financed. Now, CarMax, from what I understand, they start that process when the customer comes into the dealership on the lot. Sales associate has access to this app where they're able to clearly be able to identify what this customer qualifies for based off of their budget. And I don't know if there's a saw pull going on. Maybe you can help me out with that one. But they're able to pretty much determine, you know, what vehicle to land that customer on based off of budget and credit criteria.
Yeah, and when you're talking used cars, it's a lot easier, right? Because a used car, a price and a rate is going to equate to a payment. On new cars, you've got incentives, rebates, subsidization. So a price of a vehicle doesn't always equate to the same payment. So I could have two vehicles, $10,000 in difference in the price, but with the same payment. So, you know, I really, and a lot of times, like you were talking, if I can validate somebody's credit, and again, most of the time it's score, right? Because if you don't know the DTI, if you don't know their income, you're not going to be able to quote a payment based upon what they actually qualify for. So a lot of times, like you said, you're qualified for a certain amount. Okay. A certain amount gets you a car with a price. But again, on a used car, not so hard to do. On a new car, it's a monumental task. So when people would ask me as a leasing company, I want to lease a sport utility, and I want to spend $400. Back in the day, it was probably the 300s. Now it's going to be like $500, $600, $700 a month, right? What should I get? Now, and I could lease any make and model, new and used. So if you think about that question, wow, that's a lot of number crunching you've got to do, and it's impossible to do without technology. So, which is the reason I created the shop by payment. Now, shopping by payment is different. Everybody now, and this was the big thing at NADA, shopping, but everybody was talking to me about shop by payment, right? What's that about? In what you see now that people call shop by payment is more of a sort by payment. They're not really using credit first for that customer shop based upon what they qualify for, not just on credit score. Remember, credit score usually just indicates what rate you may get. But income, debt to income, payment to income, right? So they're just, most of the time they're sorting on payments, but you don't really know if you can qualify for that. So shopping is taking more real credit up front, credit first, doing the shopping experience based upon that, all the different financing options, all the incentives, rates, and rebates, all the inventory, new, used, CPO, all in one experience to return vehicles that customer actually qualifies for. That's real shopping by payment.
So I know a couple dealers actually who had that program and who did they did very well with it. And they seem to live and breathe by it. It worked extremely well. It's really helped them to shore up that everybody was pretty much on the same page. And they would finalize the transaction. Everybody was profitable on the front and also on the back end. And I can tell you, several dealers were really, they were pleased with it.
Well, and add the trade-in piece to that, the trade equity,
Yeah.
right? So again, getting that credit up front, I don't have to guess what that customer payoff is. I'm going to know it. I can get approximately correct from the bureau. That can be included into the calculation. I sat at a local dealer here where I was in actually the owner's office chatting with him, and it's a smaller dealership. And the salesperson comes in from the floor. Hey, I've got this deal put together. He's got a trade. I just need 12 grand for it. And I won't say who it is, so I don't want to call out anybody, but the owner goes and does the inspection of the vehicle, comes back, says, 8's the number. But I need 12 to get this deal. It's done. Mind you, he's been working on it for 2 hours. 8's the number. That's it. So because the salesperson goes out with head down, talks to the customer, and I could see the floor, and all of a sudden I see the customer get up and walk out. So tell me that's not discouraging for a salesperson, a customer, right? Are you kidding me? That is got to be the worst deflation for a salesperson to have to experience that, right? And a customer, right? You think you got it.
Well, it happens a lot. It happens too much.
Right. So again, getting that up front, the guardrails, so that the salesperson could have done that whole deal up front. Or if they couldn't, he would have known ahead of time and wouldn't have spent 2 hours. So,
well, here's the thing. I wrote a blog about, I don't know, several months back on LinkedIn, and it's about how salespeople actually they were used to certain deals. And if in the event that customer didn't fit within the parameter, rather than having to deal with that desk manager, what do you think they do? They broom customers. It's like, I don't want to deal with this guy. I don't know what I'm going to get myself into. And I think that we need to have a serious conversation when it comes to that, because we don't give salespeople any credit. And you know what? We need to start training up our sales staff, and we need to give them the credit that they absolutely deserve. And if in fact you're going to tell me, well, Beck, we can't train our salespeople today, then it's on you. It's not on them. You're the one who hired them. It's your decision, it's your leadership style. And if you're trying to tell me that they can't be held accountable or responsible, I got to say, it's on you. But here's what happens. These salespeople figure it out. Just like I have an F&I manager 6 months on the job, and they'll be the first to tell you the minute that they have that deal make their way into that F&I office and that they have to close it, off goes the base payment. Let's not kid ourselves. That's exactly what ends up happening. And so the sales staff is like, I'm not getting stuck with this. Hey, out the door, let's go. And they start either working customers on payment anyway, and it's probably guessing a lot. And if they believe that the customer is not fitting within their guardrail or parameters, out the door they go. Next customer, because I'm not wasting 3 hours and finding out that customer doesn't qualify. I'm not doing it. We have a comment here. Poor management training. Been in the business for 30 years. Seen a lot of that. Yeah, I have too. And it's like, come on. And I'm going to tell you another thing, and I'm sorry, and I'll let you go ahead. I can get myself in some tangents sometimes.
This will be the first time we're extending the show another half hour.
Well, right. But it's like, okay, so I'm just saying, we have got to do a better job training up our sales staff. It is up to us to hold ourselves accountable. And those that are trying to tell me we can't, the more that you train, the more they give up the farm. I'm just telling you, That's the other side of it. That's what some of these dealer advocates are talking about. I don't agree with that.
I think I think you have to explain and make sure the salespeople understand the industry and the business. First of all, explain the business, then use technology. And again, it's got to be good technology. Just any technology is not going to necessarily work, which is why, again, you go back to, hey, this stuff is terrible. DR is terrible. I'm not doing it. Okay. So get the overall understanding of the business, get the right tools to train with and to train them on, and let them do it up front more. Again, guardrails, but it's got to be done with real credit. Salespeople aren't going to look at the credit because the tools they're using will automate that, and it will guide them right through the sale with the customer. So I think training, yes, but it's got to be done with good tools. Otherwise, you are just going back to where we began with no tools.
So we have a Facebook user. I don't know who you are, but need to do a needs analysis on the customer to see where they are before you waste hours just to have them walk away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where is the training for that? Because some dealers, yes, absolutely, all day long. But then there's a lot of others, let's say the progressive dealers are. But I would say, okay, I can tell you how many times, Terry, when I join in dealership training, just like you, I'm like, okay, I'll tell you what, guys, here's what we're going to do. We are talking desking. And I know you seem to get it. They tell me I get it. Okay, great. Do your salespeople get it? I know you're really good at it. Let's bring up your salespeople and have them present whatever that they're going to present. What is it? An e-lead worksheet, VIN solutions, whatever it is, right? And to me, that's a menu. That is a menu that they should be able to present without doubt and be able to overcome the objections that come up. It isn't, I don't care what you utilize, but here's why I point this out, because most can't do it. Mm-hmm. Most can't even present an e-lead presentation and or overcome the objection. Now I get it. The e-lead presentation is a response tactic. We use it for a response tactic. Is it sell price? Is it trade-in? Is it payment? Is it money down? How can I earn your business? That's if, again, that we're not a trade difference store. If we're not a trade difference store, or if we're a trade difference store, then we take the payment off. Don't worry about that payment. We'll get to all that.
Yeah.
How that happens, I don't know. But anyway, but we will. And wait till you get into that F&I office. But right. The thing is that they can't even do that. And so I'm like, okay, well, could you imagine if you automated that process with a desking tool that allowed you or gave more permissions, if you will, for the customer to feel as if they're in control of the process. And at the same time, we're consistent in our presentation skills and overcoming objections.
Yeah. And then it's in store, online, there's that
either or.
Yeah. All of it, right? It's got to all flow the same way. And you know what? And then you'll be able to get salespeople. You'll have better sales, but you'll have salespeople that will talk more about the car and the experience of what you're buying, not how you're going to buy it.
I think the experience has a lot to do with it. And I think that's what's got to really hit that dealer or recognize the ultimate experience, that you're streamlining this, you're reducing the time, you're reducing the headache, you're making it fun. That right. Yeah. By being more consistent, you manage what you know. You can't manage what you don't know.
Yeah.
It's just easier.
Yep. And Steve made a comment about the transparency, but again,
Yeah.
transparency is great, right? But if it's not true transparency, meaning if it's not based upon real information, you can give numbers all day long, self credit, and it's still going to be a bad experience, because then that's not transparency anymore. There's no trust in that transparency. So again, we're talking credit has got to be involved before you start quoting anybody anything.
So what you're saying is that, okay, so a lot of stores, what they'll do, some stores, not all stores, they utilize an average rate factor to start off the deal. So, or in fact, online, they may have their own guardrails on with regard to payment options that would be made available to the customer if it's not based off of a soft pull. And
Right.
even if it's based on a soft pull, they might even have guardrails. So that way that there is some flexibility there.
But the next step, even if you're marketing, and we've done that, I would market payments all the time, based upon best case scenario. But then the next step is pre-qualify instantly. And it's not, hey, submit a form and I'll get back to you at some point. Customers are not going to give you any information unless, number one, it's immediate response, and number two, it's real, right? And I tested that myself with my own leasing company. So immediate response based upon real information. And if you do that, great conversions. We had great conversions because of that. Versus letting them self-credit. Because you let them self-credit and they see information, they may end up being like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. Okay. You have no chance of talking to that customer once they got that information that you gave them without knowing who they are. And again, if I think my credit score is a 650 and it's actually a 700 or more or whatever, my actual rate might be lower than what I'm seeing on the automation, I'm going to go somewhere else and somebody else is going to quote me a lower rate. It just drives me crazy what dealers are doing. And again, I think that goes to the reason why they're like, this is this DR stuff is just terrible and I don't want to do it. So there you go. They're going to go around it.
Well, I think you're right. I think that there's a lot to be said about that they are going around it and they are circumventing a lot of it and just pretending the online doesn't exist, and customers are coming in like they've always come in, and then having to start the process all over again. I think it would just make it much easier if, in fact, we can provide the customer with the right tools based off of a soft pull analysis that's realistic, that we can, and I love JD Power on trade value. And I know that Brian Kramer is working with Cox and AccuTrade, I believe. Is that right? And so we'll see how all this comes together. But I do think that JD Power offers a great tool for recognizing the trade, getting a better value for the trade. But at the end of the day, those terms still need to be worked out and finalized when the customer comes in to the dealership. But that is a transition, if you will, that the salespeople and management staff need to have a better process, be able to process that better with.
Right.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of getting to not necessarily, I think that there is some room there. And I also like the advantage to integrating or being able to communicate with the customer earlier on in the process too. Yeah. And not letting them, so you have AI now. I don't know if you can talk through AI. I think you and I had that conversation. There's a lot of AI conversation going on. Can you kind of explain how all this
I think right now AI, and there's Chat GPT too, right? That's out there. So
yeah,
the AI, it's there. I would use it for basic stuff, but it's not going to be able to get into the details. And customers are going to know right away whether it's somebody really helping them or not. And if at F&I, when we're talking credit, when we're talking trade, there's certain things you can do, but there's nothing like building a rapport with a customer, with a real person. So I'm going to get probably all kinds of nasty messages, but I'm not a fan of AI to the extent of just to a certain point, right? And there's great AI out there, but there's a place for it. It's not going to take the place of that customer reaction and building the rapport. It's not going to happen. And this is a people business, right? This is not an AI business. And I'm all for automation, right? Automating all the way through if the customer wants to do that, right? If they want to do it, great. But if they've got questions or they need help along that path, an AI isn't going to really know everything about their credit or their history or whatever else information you might have about that customer that you can chat about.
So when I text a customer, one thing I always put is that I am a real person. People want to know that, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I do. I like that. And right there, that starts that conversation off in a positive format. Then the customer doesn't think, okay, well, is it, who am I? Because remember, AI and chat is really being pushed in the marketplace, not just for auto either. So they're always thinking they're not talking to anybody real. I mean, who wants to talk to a chat bot? Nobody.
Well, actually there's some technology that, so in that chat box, there is the ability, I'm just saying, new technology coming out, where the customer can get access right then and there to a video, connect with a real person in the dealership if they want to. So they click, it almost does like a round robin and gets right directly into whoever is available to address and answer those questions. Pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Again, it's a personal, right? If I can't go to the dealership or if I don't want to go in just yet, it gives you a chance to build a rapport. I promise you, every day, building rapport with customers and making them feel good about who they're working with, you're going to get the deal. You're going to win.
So Chris says, definitely a people business. So many using autoresponders just for simple email and chat. Horrifying in many instances. Customers need for first quality response from a real salesperson providing value.
Yeah, no, that's true, Chris. And the other thing I'll kind of mention about that is, there's all this about, get chat and remove the forms off your dealership's website. Okay, really? If you go through those chats, they're asking questions. It is a form. And the customers are not stupid. You're asking me a question. Whether I fill out a form or whether you're chatting me to get me to fill out a form, you're filling out a form. Why do I need a form? Because if I'm the dealer and I need to give you real information, real credit, real pre-qualification, I just can't make it up. I got to know who you are, right? So whether it's a form, and forms work great, they still work great because again, if it's done properly, I will give you my information if I get something back immediately. Chat doesn't always provide that immediate result. It collects the form, but all it does is put you back down into that. The dealer will get back to you and whenever or never.
How often has chat actually really worked?
I was using chat on Lease Compare back in the 2000s, and I would sit at home at night monitoring the chat, right? Because it was my company, my business was a leasing company, and actually it worked. Real live chat works great. It does. Real live chat. I would be chatting with customers, and they would submit the app, and I would get the deal. Okay, that's live chat. That's not AI chat. There is a big difference. Chat, don't get me wrong, I believe in it 100%. 100%. But live chat is really, really important. It's like when the other day I called the plumber because our instant heat thing wasn't working, and I get this person that answers the phone, right? This is at night. They're answering the phone, asking me questions and this and that, and then they said at the end, and they'll get back to you tomorrow morning. Wait a minute, I thought I was talking to somebody that could help me now. It's like crazy. So it's the same thing with the chat. It's like,
We were only kidding.
right, we're only kidding. We're not going to help you right now. That's tomorrow. We'll give your information to them and they'll contact you.
Well, that's a lot of that. So if they can't process the situation, they'll pass the buck, right? Let me get your phone number. Let me get your name. We'll have so-and-so call you back, which is kind of interesting how that whole thing works. And then it's supposed to, it grows as you go, and it learns your language. It learns the experience. It learns from those experiences with the customer, which is, I don't know, pretty interesting how that all comes together. In fact, tomorrow night, I am having conversation about AI and how they're going to try to integrate this in dealership process. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. Yeah. I have worked with Drive Centric, and they have an option where you can do a lot. Okay. So they have Drive Centric also offers the live video chat. I think that's pretty cool. Being able to, there you are chatting, and you have the ability to click on a button to be able to have a live chat with someone should the customer choose to do so. A lot of times they don't choose to do so. I don't know, but in the beginning, but I just thought that that was a really cool way of communicating with, or the customer being able to communicate and dialing in to the dealership. So
one more thing about chat. I know we're going over here, but if a person comes into the dealership, do you hand them your phone and say, just chat with me on, or I'm not even going to talk to you, a real person. I'm going to give you the AI. Why don't you step up here and talk to our AI person? Would you do that if the customer came into the dealership? No, you would not do that. So if you're going to offer chat, a live chat, you gotta manage it. Don't AI it. You wouldn't do that in the store. What you're telling the customer that's online, you're not as important. You're not that important. You're not important enough for me to actually talk to you, a real person. I'm just going to give you, AI and see how far I can get you down the path. I'm sure it works some, but it's going to work better with real live people. So.
Yeah, well, let's say for an example, and here's some of the pain point that I will just briefly talk about. F&I, there is a potential black hole. And those calls go in to a black hole, never to be talked to again. We've had this problem going on for a very long time. And I think I'd rather have some sort of accountability there with something. AI is better than what's happening right now. That black hole, they're always putting a call into F&I. F&I is always on the phone. They're on the phone with, or they're with a customer, or they're on the phone with the lender. Call goes into their voicemail. Never. And some go ahead and answer their voicemails. Yes, they do. But there's a lot that those calls just don't get answered. And so I have a question about rate. I have a question about service contract. I have a question, can I cancel my policy? Blah, blah, and blah, blah. And meanwhile, there they go into orbit. So I think that could be interesting, because at least we have some accountability there.
Yeah, and AI chat up to a certain point. I'm not saying no AI chat, but up to a certain point.
Yeah.
And there's phone AI now. Stella, they've got this phone AI. It can do an appointment. That's great. Okay. Those are great things for AI, because if you can't answer the phone to set an appointment for service or something, and AI can do it.
Yeah.
All for it. Right. I love that idea, because all it is setting an appointment. Am I free? Yes, you're free. I can set the appointment. But when you start getting into sales and the consumer, again, that's not necessarily that customer's coming to me for service. They've already chosen to schedule an appointment. I'm not trying to sell them a car or sell them something. I'm handling the service that they're needing. That's great. But when you start getting into sales, customer service, customer experience, building that rapport is critical.
It's still always about that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And if it's
Uh,
not,
yeah.
if it's not, then the dealers might as well just give up their franchise, give it to the OEMs, and go on to do something else.
I think we hear a lot about, especially I did, going to NADA. We're back to customer loyalty. We're and customer relationship and customer experience. This is what I'm hearing a lot about, the customer experience. I know you and I talked about it. You also heard a lot about that because we have to differentiate ourselves from the rest. And how do you do that? Through ultimate customer people experience.
Yeah,
People buy from people that they like, and they still buy from people that they like and who are credible, right? It's just, that's the secret sauce. And so that, and of course, really feeling good, the vibe, right? When you're walking into a dealership, it's the vibe. I think you mentioned that as well.
Yeah. And all of that starts with the technology. I'm not saying don't use technology, but you got to use technology that's going to help build that relationship and that trust factor. Use the technology, but back it up with the customer rapport with that information. Dealers get information leads all the time. I mean, they get credit qualified leads, and then they use these autoresponders that have nothing to do with the deal structure and everything that the customer submitted with their credit. They start out with, hey, thanks for coming in. Hey, we got great finance rates. Well, wait a minute, I'm already pre-qualified and I've already done my deal structure.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about that?
Right. So. Well, right. And I can tell you how many times I've done some mystery shopping on my own, and I get into the nitty gritty. Hold on, wait a second. You're asking way too many questions. And I'm like, you're not going to put me on hold for 20 minutes, are you? I'll be right back. It happens all the time, right? So in ending our great conversation, I can't thank you enough. Again, Terry, I know you're a very busy person, and I want to thank you for having this Tuesday special edition with Becky Chernek. But in closing, what would you say to our dealers as we're going through this 2023? How do they wrap their arms, embrace some of this, training their staff to just have a better understanding of customer, what they qualify for earlier on in the process? What would you say?
Well, yeah, you've got to do the credit first. So look into credit first. And by the way, I can talk about this stuff all day long. I mean, for hours. I just love it. I know it. I've experienced it myself. I built stuff, so I can talk about it forever. But you know what? If you put something on your website or you put some process in place, like you mentioned, doing a secret shopper thing, have somebody do it. Have somebody go through the process, and you ready for this? And watch them do it. And I've done this with my own companies and software I've created, because you're like, oh no, hit back. You want to help them through it, but if you're not there to tell them what to do, what's going to happen? So it's painful. It's very painful to watch a customer go through your automated experience, whether it's getting pre-qualified, quoting payments, or digital retailing, or whatever it is. But I would do that. Take a neighbor, take a friend, and you know what? Do it on this. Do not show me anything on desktop. Okay. We do social media ads for Shop by Payment. 95% is all social. So do not show me anything on a desktop. Don't demo anything on a desktop. If somebody's trying to sell you something, and I experienced this with another industry, and she was trying to show me on this. I said, show me on my mobile. She's like, well, I'm not sure how this is going to work. Okay, well, there's a problem.
There's a problem.
So
yeah,
have people demo their products and try to do it through your website. Send a link to your friend and say, hey, check this out. Can you do this? If it's my product, I want them to be able to do it without me coaching. So have you ever done an analysis of a store that you implemented your technology, that signed up for your technology, and how that impacted F&I? So, and if I don't always get the data back out of the DMS, right?
Yeah.
But when dealers report back to me, and it's an honest conversation, and these are dealers I know, right? I don't get to talk to all of them, but the ones I do, or if they really like the tech, they'll tell you and they'll be upfront. But when you automate, we see higher front end pricing. There's not much negotiating on the pricing or the rate, and they have higher back end, because once you've got that customer trust and built that, it makes it easier. And it's not just about, and I don't want this to get out there where dealers are taking advantage of people by using automated. No, everybody, if I have a certain credit as you, we're going to get the same deal, right? Everybody's going to get a fair deal or the right deal. And it's going to be based upon my credit, not what I think I can pull out of you, right? So because if you start putting your salespeople in a position where they're negotiating, you're going to lose, right? You're going to lose. So people tend to believe what they see here and on their computer or, on technology, what they get. They tend to believe that it's real. It's not somebody just a salesperson telling me something, or the manager. This is real information. I can use it. I can accept it. I can believe it, until it gets to the point where I can't believe it. So again, trust, verify, but make sure that you're quoting accurately. Now I'll leave you with that.
No, that's a good leave. Because I got to tell you, from my day in AutoNation 25 years ago, as I was at a kiosk in the middle of the showroom presenting that menu for the first time, customers understood the terms of the sale. They understood the APR. It was disclosed. The base payment, it was disclosed. The trade information, it was disclosed. They understood all the terms of the sale prior to products being presented. And then everyone said, there's no way you're going to be profitable, have a higher performance, be out there exposed, presenting those menus 100% of the time. And what did we end up finding out? Yeah, we were very successful, because it's about consistency. And when you have consistency, you have more confidence. And when you have more confidence, people buy into that. They like it. They see you as genuine, authentic. You're not full of yourself, and they buy. People buy from people they like and who are, who they feel is being credible. So that's it. That's really it. It's not rocket science, as one GM used to tell me. Becky, it's not rocket science, but it's
F&I science.
So again, Terry, thank you so much for being on tonight. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure we will have one more comment here, and let's just see what we've got going on. We've got Brooke is just saying hello. And then there she is. Brooke Furness is just saying hello. Brooke, thank you for being on and saying hello. I'm glad that you're here and you found us, and thank you. I appreciate it. And okay, well, I just again want to thank everyone for being on tonight. And Terry, thank you again. Good conversation as always.
I appreciate it, Becky, very much.
Thank you. Okay.